Alright, it was Friday when I read this. Hopefully you guys see it soon. Here we go. Yeah, there we go. If I build a crooked house, the least I could do is sit up straight, right? Okay. Alright, the last thing that's been on my mind a lot lately is number 3. This is the third of a 3-part series that I recorded on the date on screen, the Friday the 8th. These will probably be released sometime into the future, but I had the ideas all written down, so I figured I'd read them all off now, and then make the videos for your amazement and delight in the future. Yeah, so be amazed and delighted already. Yeah, I do the hard part. You guys just get to sit there and watch this. Number 3 of 3 wonderful ideas. Solar-powered microcar for long distances. Copied from the idea of the Australian Solar Challenge, currently known as the Bridgestone World Solar Challenge. If you look that up on Google or YouTube, you're going to see some really neat stuff. I'm going to give you a few pictures. Also, I will try to find links to some of these videos and then put them in the description or something so you can go check it out. So look for that. Anyway, this will be a fully enclosed vehicle capable of 200 miles per day or more. Okay, first off, you need to see these if you've not already. And yes, there is a link in the description, or there will be. Okay, short version first. There has been a solar-powered car race in Australia for about the last 30 years. They do them typically every other year, although in the beginning they were every third year. There's a great article on Wikipedia about this. I'll try to remember to put that link in the description also. The World Solar Challenge, since 2013 named the Bridgestone World Solar Challenge, is an international event for solar-powered cars driving 3,000 kilometers through the Australian Outback. That's around 1,800 miles. For reference, I rode my bicycle about 4,000 miles in 2022, pulling a solar panel on a trailer. Just saying, it is possible and it's been on my radar for a while. Okay. Alright, so the course is over 3,000 kilometers, 1,800 miles through the Australian Outback from Darwin in the Northern Territory to Adelaide, South Australia. The event was created to foster the development of solar-powered vehicles. The cars are fast enough to be able to exceed local speed limits up to 80 miles an hour. This was interesting in the Wikipedia article. They realized the cars were going so fast, the support vehicles were having a hard time keeping up. So several years ago, they restricted the speeds to the local speed limits. So okay, when you build your car for the Australian race, which I'm not looking to do anytime soon, so don't worry about that, one of the steps when they go through what they call scrutineering, which all race cars go through scrutineering, you have to have your car inspected before it's allowed to race to make sure it's safe, and they've got a bunch of criteria that they inspect it for. Okay. In the later years, those cars come out of scrutineering if they pass, and they actually have a license plate on them. They are legally allowed to drive on the public roads in Australia. So they are inspected to meet all of the safety standards. They have licenses, they have the license plate, they've got signal lights, brake lights, they have a rollover protection system. Several of the cars have rolled because they get hit by a high wind, side wind, and it just flips them over, at full speed. Several of the cars have caught fire because the lithium batteries are all handmade by engineering students, and they don't have enough time to do proper long-term safety testing. The batteries degrade quite a bit in the beginning, so they are using them at the absolute peak of their life, and sometimes they do overheat. So yeah, they aren't made for consumers kind of a thing. So one of the things is, the car has to have rollover protection. Another thing they test is the driver has to be able to get out quickly in case there is a fire. Yeah, they've got a pretty good track record of getting the drivers out without getting them hurt, which is, they're doing a pretty good job. And the whole idea of racing from the beginning has always been you race because you can accelerate your development cycles, right? If you want things to work really well, you put them in race cars and see how they do. If it'll last 500 miles in the Indy 500, it'll probably last 50,000 miles on a production car. And then we've gotten better since then. Yeah, it used to be most of the cars in the Indy 500 didn't even finish. Now they almost all finish. Racing is good. Solar racing is better. Yeah, okay. Off my soapbox. I'll need that for later. I remember the first time I saw these cars, I was flat out hooked. Sure, if you're comparing this to your normal gas-guzzling car, or even a proper electric car like a Tesla, these do seem kind of weird, even impractical. But you have to remember, I'm coming at this from a motorcycle and then a bicycle. The amount of power a Tesla car or a Nissan Leaf, which is a smaller electric car, the amount of power those cars need to recharge, if you looked at it from the point of view of an off-grid solar system, you would need an enormous array of solar panels. I could probably charge a smaller electric car like a Nissan Leaf in about a week out here on my solar system. That would be enough power to probably get to El Paso, maybe. The older Leafs that I was looking at really don't even have 100 miles range because the battery is pretty small on the less expensive ones. So I would put all of my power into charging it and still not get to El Paso. So we got some room to grow there. So when I started seeing those university teams in Australia going highway speeds on solar without needing to stop to recharge their batteries, I knew I had to take another look. Basic efficiency, a super lightweight vehicle, extremely aerodynamic, and custom-made motors. Typically, the cars cost in the millions of dollars. Built by pretty smart engineering students, using space-grade solar panels, hand-built battery packs, hand-soldered electronics, right to the ragged edge of what is now possible. Well, okay, so a little bit beyond my current pay grade then. All right, but not wanting to quite quit just yet, I go back again to what I'm already doing. If I put a slipstream body together, wrap that around the chassis I am already working on, use commercial grade solar panels instead of space grade panels, sprinkle in some carbon fiber parts, and push the electric bicycle parts just a little bit harder. Legally, an electric bicycle is speed limit restricted to 20 miles per hour. Different areas do have different limits. Some places have limits on the motor size, 250 watts, 500 watts for the motor, etc. But then the cargo bikes that are doing actual deliveries can run a bigger motor, but just be speed limited to 20 or 30, probably 20 miles an hour. Out here in wide open Texas, the odds of me going by a police car at 30 miles an hour on a bicycle and them even noticing me are pretty slim. The freeway out here has an 80-mile-an-hour speed limit. Could I practically get to a Walmart in El Paso to stock up on groceries once or twice a month using only a solar-powered vehicle and get there and back in a single 24-hour day? That's the question. I have ridden from El Paso back to home about 100 miles in a day, but not there and back in the same day. I could go to town, stay in a motel, and come home the next day. But I'm thinking this could be possible. Also, if I was in a motel, I could recharge the batteries when I was there. I did that sometimes on the trip last year. From my house out here on the ranch to where I used to work in El Paso was 100 miles, like down to the fraction of a mile, one way. So we could start with that. When I say I'm going to El Paso, it's about 100 miles from here to wherever we would go. Close enough. So 200 miles round trip. On the solar, we have about 6 hours of peak solar from about 10 o'clock in the morning to 4 p.m. It varies a bit, but that's what we call peak solar. Outside of those hours, the sun is too low, it's shining sideways through a bunch of air, and all the dust in the air blocks too much sun. We get some sun, but the peak solar hours are the best. It might be worth setting the solar panels so they can pivot side to side, as long as the crosswind isn't too bad. We won't tilt the panels fore or aft. That causes way too much drag. Also, when we're at the store, we could park such that our solar panels were aimed as well as possible at the sun. I did that quite a bit on the solar bike trip in 2022. Anytime I was stopped, I'd look for the sun and find a place to park to take advantage of that. Now, we can't make the whole ride in 6 hours, could we? Well, okay, so 200 divided by 6 is 33 miles per hour. Well, that's on the high end, but it might be possible. Technically, we're above what an electric bike is allowed to do, but nobody out here knows that. I do still think it would be a great goal to actually get a speeding ticket on a bicycle. I would frame that sucker. Not many people can say they've done that. In a perfect world, you would get a medal, not a ticket. In an earlier video, I probably mentioned the flex panels that I have. On the 2022 solar-powered bike trip, I started with one 100-watt flex panel. Then I actually found another one on the side of the road. Later, I traded that to someone for a new panel, so I had two good panels. At 200 watts of solar, I had enough power to pull the bike and trailer down the road at a nice comfortable pace. Middle of the day when I stopped, the bike got a good charge, but I'd often ride from close to sunrise to sunset, not going very fast, but making up for it with longer riding days. There are now bigger panels and the prices are coming down. I have seen 170 or 175 watt panels for around $250 each. If I'm planning to get to El Paso and back, I'd want to maximize the panels. So I figured maybe we could eventually get 5 of the panels. They're about 5 feet long and 2 feet wide, close enough. So if I had a panel sideways, I would be 5 feet wide and about 10 feet long for 5 panels. The current Delta solar array is 8 feet by 2 feet, so I'd only be a little bit longer and 3 feet wider. I'd still easily fit on the shoulder of the road. It won't quite fit through the back door of the house anymore though, but maybe I just make the panels removable. Or I could build another garage to put the Delta trikes in. So we'd have about 875 watts of power with 5 of those panels. If I can cruise at 500 watts, which I think I should be able to, I would be able to fully charge the battery while riding in the middle of the day. So as long as I have enough battery to get me through the morning, by solar peak, I'd be charging. That might work. If you're curious, yes, I could physically just take enough batteries to get to El Paso and back and skip the solar. But as it turns out, solar panels weigh less than batteries, and they cost less also. Plus, the shade from the solar roof is really nice. I've said this before, what I learned on the solar bike trip in 2022. If you know your distance and are planning to be home again that night or even the next day, yeah, skip the solar. It's just easier to get another battery. But when you start actually touring, the solar is really obvious. I found that I could push my batteries a bit harder going up a hill or against a headwind, knowing that when I slowed down or stopped for a break, I would be recharging again automatically. It's a great feeling. That panel is constantly producing power. Moving, stopped, or whatever, as long as there's sun, you're getting some power. It's constantly recharging. It's just the best thing ever. All right, fork in the road. Options time. Option 1, we keep it as a legal bicycle, so we don't need license, insurance, etc. Option 2, we could consider this. Register it as an assembled car and then go through that process. In Texas, they recently reinstated the rules to license an assembled vehicle. That includes things like kit cars and some dune buggies. So you could build your own car, get it inspected, pay the fees, get it licensed. Once it's legal in Texas, those license plates are valid nationwide. Reciprocity. So that's an option for sure. Low-volume cars like kit cars don't have to go through crash testing and all that. You just show good workmanship, basic safety equipment, horns and lights and seatbelts, and you're good to go. But then I'd need to go get it inspected, and I'd need to pay for insurance. The advantage of that, though, is then I would not be limited to 20 miles an hour. So if I was able to build something that could go faster, I don't think I would want to go freeway speed, but if I could go 50 or 60 miles an hour, I could take some of the secondary roads and really make some time. That would make the ride to, for instance, El Paso practical. So it's something I would consider. The other option then, if I kept it legally a bicycle, pedal power, speed limited to 20 miles per hour, it would be a lot simpler. It's pretty common for someone in a velomobile to be able to pedal over 20 miles an hour, even without the motor. There is no limit on how fast you are allowed to pedal. The limit is on the electric motor assist, which is interesting. I'll find a picture of a velomobile. Basically, it's a pedal-powered missile. If you remove the air drag, you can go crazy fast. I could actually see making one of each and probably moving some parts between them. The bicycle version would just run bicycle wheels and tires. The car version could run car or maybe motorcycle tires, since it would need to have DOT-approved tires to pass inspection. We'd probably need to make the car version stronger so it would be heavier. It could use motorcycle brakes, maybe battery packs adapted from actual electric cars, which are available at some auto wreckers. People in electric cars still manage to crash them, so we get a nice selection of all the best parts. Anyway, that's what I've been thinking about lately. Short recap then. If we make it light enough and aerodynamic enough, a modest solar system could power it nicely to 20 or probably 30 miles per hour. Going faster is less efficient, so we'd need more power. But if we slow down, we can go crazy far and still pretty fast. I think that covers the important parts. Stay tuned and be sure to subscribe. Bye for now. And 44 minutes for 3, that's about 15 minutes of video. Hell yeah, that'll be great. All right. End recording.